Welcome back to the Fundamentals of Fitness. In the last episode, we talked about progressive overload, how your body actually changes when you give it a reason to adapt, how strength is built and how muscle is built and how performance can improve. But today's episode is the one that stops people from running themselves into the ground. Because if progressive overload is how you make progress, then training volume is how much progress your body can actually tolerate. And this is where so many people get stuck. Some people aren't doing enough to create a stimulus, and some people are doing far too much and wondering why they're exhausted, sore, flat, or injured. And a lot of people are stuck in the constant mental loop of should I be doing more or should I be doing less? So today we're going to clear that up. We're going to talk about what training volume actually is in plain English, why more is not always better, how much training you really need for fat loss, strength, and performance, and how to find the sweet spot where progress happens without burnout. This episode is for you if you feel permanently sore, if you're training hard but not seeing results, if you feel tired instead of stronger, or if you're worried you're not doing enough. By the end of this episode, you'll understand how to train just enough to move forward and why that's often far less chaotic than you've been led to believe. So let's get into it. Training volume is one of those words that gets thrown around a lot, but rarely explained properly. So let's simplify it. At the most basic level, training volume is the total amount of work you do. That's it. In strength terms, it usually is described as sets times reps times load. But don't panic, we're not turning this into a maths lesson for you. What this really means is how many sets you do, how many reps are in those sets, and how heavy the weight is. That combination determines how much stress you're putting on your body. And here's the key thing most people miss. Volume is not the same as intensity. You can train very hard, very focused, and very heavy, but still not be doing a huge amount of volume. And you can also train for a very long time with lots of exercises, lots of sets, lots of sessions, but not be training particularly hard or effectively. More time does not equal more stimulus, and effort does not automatically equal progress. Your body doesn't just respond to what you do, it responds to how much of it you do and whether it can recover from it. Every training session creates stress. That stress has to be absorbed, recovered from, and adapted to. If you give your body too little volume, there's no reason to adapt, and too much volume, your body can't recover. And if you can't recover, you don't progress. You just accumulate fatigue. This is why people feel constantly sore, performance starts dropping, motivation disappears, sleep quality drops, and niggles turn into injuries, and training starts to feel like a chore. Not because you're weak, not because you're lazy, but because the volume is mismatched to your recovery capacity. And the big misunderstanding that more is better. Somewhere along the way, fitness culture decided that more sessions equals more discipline, and more sweat equals more results, and more soreness equals better training. And honestly, that belief has caused more plateaus, burnout, and injuries than most of anything else. And here's the truth. Your body doesn't reward effort. It rewards appropriate stress. You don't get bonus points for suffering. You don't get extra fat loss for being exhausted, and you don't build muscle faster by doing everything every day. Your body adapts when your stimulus is strong enough and recovery is sufficient. Volume is the lever that controls the balance. Let's give you an example. Let's say two people train legs. Person A does 12 exercises, 5 sets each, training legs 3 times a week, and is sore constantly, and performance is going backwards. Person B does 4 to 5 key exercises, 3 to 4 quality sets. He's training legs twice a week, recovering well and getting stronger. Person B will almost always make better progress, not because they're working harder, but because their volume matches their ability to recover. And if you're in a calorie deficit, so you're trying to lose fat, your recovery capacity is lower. You have less energy coming in, higher stress hormones, often poorer sleep, and more life fatigue. Trying to train with higher volume while dieting is one of the fastest ways to stall fat loss. And this is why people say, I'm eating less and training more and nothing is happening. Your body is overwhelmed. Volume has to come down when food comes down. That's not weakness, that's physiology. And on the other end of the spectrum, athletes. Athletes don't just train, they also have sports sessions, competitions, travel, mental load, reaction demands, technical practice. All of that counts as training stress. So if you pile on high gym volume on top of that, your performance suffers. The best athletes in the world are not the ones doing the most, they're the ones doing the right amount. So now that you understand what training volume is and why it matters and why more isn't the answer, the rest of the episode is going to show you how much volume you actually need, how to tell if you're doing too much or too little, and how to adjust week to week without second guessing yourself. Because clarity beats chaos and smart training beats heroic training every time. So now that we've clarified what training volume actually is, we need to clear up some of the absolute nonsense that surrounds it. Because a lot of people aren't confused due to the lack of effort. They're confused because they've been taught the wrong things. So let's calmly, respectfully, but firmly bust the biggest myths I see every single week. If any of these hit close to home, it's not a criticism. I'm just making clarity. Myth number 1, more is always better. This is a big one. Somewhere along the way, fitness culture decided that if some training is good, more must be better. More sessions, more exercise, more sets, more sweat. But your body doesn't work on a more is better model. It works on a stimulus to recovery to adaptation model. And if you add more and more volume without increasing your ability to recover, you don't get better results. You get stuck. This is why people say, I'm training loads, but nothing's happening. Or I feel exhausted all of the time. Or I'm sore every single day. Or I don't feel like I'm getting stronger anymore. And that's not through lack of effort. That's just excess volume. Your reality check is progress happens when volume is appropriate, not maximal. Myth number 2, if I'm not sore, it didn't work. Delayed onset muscle soreness, or DOMS, has been massively overglorified. Soreness tells you that you did something unfamiliar, or you did a lot of volume, or you're stressed tissue in a new way. It does not tell you whether you've built muscle, whether you've gotten stronger, or whether you trained effectively. In fact, constant soreness is often a sign that volume is too high, or recovery is too low, or exercises are changing too frequently. Some of the best progress you'll ever make happens in phases where soreness is minimal because your body is adapting efficiently. Reality check. You're not training for pain, you're training for progress. Myth 3. I need to train every day. This one gets wrapped up often in identity. People equate daily training with discipline, commitment, and being serious. But rest days are not a lack of discipline, they're part of your program. If you're training hard enough, your body needs time to adapt. And here's the thing most people don't realize is that your muscles don't grow during training. They grow during recovery. Training every single day doesn't automatically mean you're doing too much. But for most people, especially those with jobs, stress, families, poor sleep, and limited recovery, it's unnecessary. The reality check. Training 3 to 4 times a week well beats training 6 to 7 times per week badly. Every time. Myth 4. Athletes train way more than everyone else. This one is the most misleading belief out there. High-level athletes don't just train more, they recover better. They often have structured programming, coaching, oversight, physios, massage, planned deloads, regulated volume. And even then, many athletes are doing less in the gym than people expect. Why? Because they have sports sessions, technical practice, competitions, travel, cognitive load, and all of that counts as training stress. So if you try and copy athlete volume without athlete recovery resources, you'll burn out. Your reality check is that elite athletes are efficient, not chaotic. Myth 5, more exercise means better results. This one is sneaky, and people assume that if they've hit a muscle from 12 different angles, they'll get better results. But muscles don't need novelty. They need quality stimulus repeated over time. If your session includes 10 plus exercises, lots of overlap, minimal progression, and rushed sets, you're increasing fatigue without increasing adaptation. A smaller number of well-chosen exercises trained with intent and appropriate volume will outperform variety every time. Your reality check is that more exercise does not equal more results. Better execution does. Myth 6. If I do less, I'll lose progress. This fear keeps people trapped. People worry that taking rest days, reducing volume, or doing fewer sets will somehow undo all of their hard work. But your body doesn't lose muscle or strength overnight. In fact, strategically reducing volume often leads to better performance, improved recovery, renewed motivation, and stronger lifts. This is why deloads and maintenance weeks exist. They're not a step backwards, they're part of the forward progress. Reality check. Doing slightly less can help you do everything better. Myth 7. If I'm tired, I just need to push through. There's a difference between discomfort and accumulated fatigue. Pushing through genuine fatigue doesn't build resilience, it builds burnout. Your body gives you signals: declining performance, poor sleep, heavy limbs, lack of motivation. Ignoring these signals doesn't make you tougher, it makes progress harder. Your reality check is smart training listens, it doesn't ignore. So let's bring it all together. If you've recognized yourself in any of these myths, here's the most important thing to hear. Nothing has gone wrong. You're not broken. You're not lazy. You're not doing it wrong. You've just been taught to value more instead of appropriate. And that's exactly what we're fixing in this episode. If there's one concept that completely changes how people train, it's this one: the minimum effective dose. This idea comes from both exercise science and high-performance sport, and it simply means, what is the least amount of training I need to do to still make progress? Not the most you can survive, not the most you can cram in, and not the most that leaves you exhausted. Just enough. Because anything above that is not extra progress, it's just extra fatigue. For a lot of people, the idea of doing less feels wrong. We're conditioned to believe that effort must equal suffering, and discipline means pushing, and rest means laziness. So when someone says, you might get better results doing less, it can feel almost insulting. But here's the reframe. High performers don't do more. They do what works, and then they stop. They leave room to recover. They leave room to adapt, and they leave room to come back stronger. Your body adapts to stimulus, not exhaustion. And once you've provided enough stimulus to signal, hey, this needs to get stronger, anything beyond that does not increase adaptation. It just drains your recovery or increases soreness. It raises your injury risk and interferes with sleep, and it blunts your performance for your next session. That's why people often feel better when they reduce the volume. They get stronger after a deload, and they break plateaus when they stop overdoing it. Think of progress like a balance. On the one side, you've got training stimulus. On the other side, you've got recovery capacity. Progress happens when these two are matched. If your stimulus is higher than recovery, then your fatigue accumulates. And if your stimulus is less than recovery, then nothing changes. The minimum effective dose sits right in the middle. It's the point where the body gets the message, but still has enough resources to adapt. This might sound counterintuitive, but it's something I see all the time as a coach. Busy people have limited training time and are forced to prioritize and often stick to simple programs. They recover better because volume is naturally capped. They don't do fluff, they do the work that matters. Meanwhile, people with unlimited time often add unnecessary exercises and chase volume for volume's sake. They struggle to recover, and then their progress stalls. The constraint creates clarity. Minimum effective dose for different goals. And these are not strict rules, they are guidelines to give you confidence. For fat loss, and if this is your primary goal, you do not need daily HIIT, endless cardio, or huge gym sessions. You do need 2 to 4 strength training sessions per week, enough volume to maintain muscle, you need consistency, and you need recovery. Often, less volume plus better quality leads to better fat loss, especially in a calorie deficit. To build muscle, you need sufficient weekly sets per muscle group, progressive overload, adequate food, and sleep. But more volume does not equal faster growth. Most people grow best with moderate volume, repeatable sessions, and room to recover. When volume gets too high, muscle growth stalls. Strength responds very well to lower to moderate volume, higher intent, better rest between sessions. This is why powerlifters don't do endless sets. They do focused work, few key lifts, and enough volume to drive adaptation. And for athletes and motorsport, athletes must account for sport practice, competition, travel, and mental load. For them, the minimum effective dose in the gym is often lower than expected, highly specific, and carefully progressed. Gym work supports performance. It doesn't dominate it. So how do we find your own minimum effective dose? Ask yourself these questions. Am I progressing well week to week? Do I feel recovered between sessions? Is my performance improving or declining? Am I constantly sore? Do I dread sessions or feel energized by them? If you're progressing and recovering, then you're likely close to your minimum effective dose. And if you're exhausted and flat, you're probably doing too much. So let's have a quick reframe. Training is not about how much pain you can tolerate. It's about sending the right signal at the right time in the right amount. That's how progress becomes sustainable. Signs your training volume is too high and too low. And this section is about awareness, because most people don't need a brand new program. They don't need more motivation. They don't need to try harder. They just need to learn how to listen to the signals their body is already giving them and how to know what those signals mean. And let's start with the big one. Signs your training volume is too high. And high volume doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like I'm training consistently, I'm being disciplined, I'm doing all the right things. But underneath the body is struggling, and here are the most common signs I see. Number 1, you're always sore. Not occasionally sore, not that session was spicy sore. I mean sore most days. Joints feeling achy, stiffness that never quite goes away, and constant soreness is not a badge of honour. It's often a sign that recovery can't be kept up with volume. Number 2, your performance is stagnating or declining. This is a big red flag. If weights feel heavier than they should, the reps are going backwards, the sessions feel harder for no clear reason. That's not a motivation problem, that's an accumulated fatigue problem. Number 3, you feel flat, heavy, or unmotivated, and training starts to feel like a chore or something you have to force yourself to do, and it's mentally draining. This is especially common in people who train hard, are on a calorie deficit, have busy lives, and don't sleep well. The body is asking for less, not more. Number 4, your sleep quality drops. High training volume can increase cortisol and elevate nervous system stress and interfere with your sleep. If you're struggling to fall asleep, waking up a lot, and feeling unrefreshed, your volume may be too high for your current recovery capacity. Number 5, those little niggles start appearing. Tight shoulders, sore knees, achy lower back, tender elbows. These are not just random. They're often early warning signs your tissue is not recovering between sessions. Number 6, you're getting ill more often. If your immune system feels shot, you've got frequent colds or lingering bugs, and you're always coming down with something. Chronic high training volume can suppress your immune function. Your body is prioritizing survival, not adaptation. There are some signs that your training volume is also too low. So let's balance this out, because sometimes people pull back too much, usually out of fear. And low volume doesn't feel dramatic either. It often feels comfortable. So 1, you're never challenged. Sessions feel easy. You finish and think, I could have done more. That's a sign your stimulus is too low. 2, you're always fresh. Feeling good is great. Feeling never challenged is not. If you're always fresh, always recovered, always comfortable, there may not be enough stress to trigger adaptation. 3, nothing is progressing. The weights stay the same. The reps are the same. The fitness stays the same. You're maintaining. You're not progressing. 4, you feel busy, but not better. And this one is sneaky. You're moving, you're attending sessions, and you're ticking boxes, but nothing is actually improving. This often happens when volume is spread too thin across too many exercises. Here's what I really want you to hear. Neither high volume nor low volume is bad. They're just tools. The problem isn't volume. The problem is mismatched volume. Volume that doesn't fit your goals, your life, your recovery, or your current phase. Your ideal training volume is not fixed. It changes with stress, sleep, nutrition, menstrual cycle, work demands, competition season, life events. This is why rigid plans fail. Good training adapts to you. Now that you know what volume is, how much you actually need, and how to spot when it's too high or too low, the final piece is learning how to adjust it week to week, calmly, confidently, without overthinking. And that's what we'll cover next. This is the part that gives people freedom. Because once you understand this, you'll stop constantly asking, am I doing enough? Am I doing too much? Should I push harder or should I rest? And instead, you'll start responding calmly to what your body is telling you. Training volume is not fixed. It is not something that you set once and never touch again. It should flex with how you're sleeping, how stressed you are, how you're eating, how your body feels, and where you are in the year. Good training is responsive, not rigid. You can consider slightly increasing your volume if you're recovered well, you're not excessively sore, your performance feels stable or improving, and your sessions feel challenging but manageable, and your motivation is good. This might look like adding 1 extra set to main lift, adding volume to 1 muscle group only, increasing volume for 1 week, not forever. Volume increases should be small, deliberate, and temporary, not a permanent more mindset. When to hold volume steady. Maintenance weeks are massively underrated. You hold volume steady when life is busy, sleep is a bit off, stress is higher, you're on a calorie deficit, and your performance is still progressing. Maintenance does not mean stagnation. If you're maintaining volume but still progressing load, reps, or technique, you're still moving forward. When to reduce volume. Pulling volume back is not failure, it's intelligence. You may reduce volume when you feel run down, your soreness is lingering, your performance is dropping, your motivation is low, and those niggles are appearing. This might look like fewer sets, fewer exercises, fewer sessions, lighter loads, and more rest days. Often people get stronger after doing this because recovery finally catches up. And deloads, without the fear. A deload is simply a planned reduction in training stress. It's not stopping, it's not doing nothing, it's not losing progress. A deload might mean same exercises but fewer sets, or lighter weights, or slower tempo, or fewer sessions. Think of it as letting fatigue drop while keeping the skill. Deloads are especially useful after hard training blocks, during stressful life periods, before competitions, or during long calorie deficit phases. They keep progress sustainable. And maintenance weeks, the secret weapon. Maintenance weeks are when you keep volume steady, keep load steady, focus on quality, and prioritize recovery. They're incredibly powerful for busy weeks, travel, hormonal fluctuations, and mental reset. Progress is not always linear. Maintenance is part of progress. And a note on the menstrual cycle. For women, volume training and tolerance can fluctuate across the cycle. Some phases tolerate higher volume, feel stronger and recover faster, and other phases feel heavier, fatigue faster, need slightly reduced volume. This is normal. It's not weakness, it's physiology. And adjusting volume across the cycle is strength, not an excuse. Check out my earlier podcast on the menstrual cycle if you'd like more information. And a note for athletes and motorsport goers. Athletes must always consider sport sessions, competition load, mental fatigue, travel, reaction demands. Gym volume should support performance, not compete with it. And in season, your volume often comes down, intensity stays specific, and quality matters most. When you're off season, your volume can increase, your weaknesses can be addressed, and capacity can build. The context matters. A simple weekly check-in. Here's a question I want listeners to take away with. Am I adapting, or am I just accumulating fatigue? If you're adapting, stay the course. If you're just accumulating fatigue, reduce your volume, recover, then rebuild. Training is a conversation with your body. Learn to listen. Okay, guys, let's bring this home. Training volume is not about doing the most. It's about doing enough. Enough to stimulate change, enough to recover, and enough to come back stronger. If you take one thing away from today, let it be this. Progress does not come from exhaustion. It comes from balance. And when volume, recovery, and intent are aligned, training stops feeling chaotic and it starts feeling powerful. And next week, we're building directly on this episode with number 23, the strength curve, why exercise selection matters more than you think. This episode will change how you choose exercises forever and make progress feel easier, not harder. And as always, thank you for listening. Thank you for trusting me with your time. And thank you for training in a way that respects your body instead of punishing it. I'll see you next week.